Well, listen, first of all, I will tell you, I had never heard of LifeWise Academy, which I'm very interested in learning more about it. I have interviewed Dr. Barna a couple of times, and
Oh yeah, he's a good friend.
is oh really? What that's he's a
Hmm.
great guy. We've talked, we have discussed a couple of his books and a lot of his research, on American
Hmm.
culture and the shifts that we've had in religion
Yeah.
and especially since COVID, of course, he's been heavy at work, trying to figure out what is going on with our culture and our country. But
Yeah.
this is such an incredible, uh, really since 2019 LifeWise Academy. Tell us, what is LifeWise for our audience?
Yeah, LifeWise is essentially an optional Bible class for public school students that happens during school hours. That's the crux of it. And I work for the national headquarters, and we help serve hundreds and hundreds of now thousands of programs, or 1,000 programs across the country. And yeah, it's most people think that it's illegal to do something like this, that it's illegal
Right.
to teach the Bible during school hours, but we can get into why it actually works. But yeah, that
Yes, and so this is like brand new to me. So we, we hear about separation of church and state, and of course, the name of the book of the documentary that you are producing is "Off School Property: Solving the Separation of Church and State." So let's talk about that, the separation of church and state. Tell us how you address this problem
yes.
in this
Well,
documentary.
yeah. So for a long time, people have just thought that that term, separation of church and state, just you can't teach the Bible to public school students. It's a total off limit sort of thing. But really, it's an unbelievably misunderstood idea. That
Yes.
idea actually comes from a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote to the Danbury Baptists uh, a long time ago. Basically, they were a group of concerned Christians who were wondering if this new America we were establishing was going to force them to worship in specific ways, believe specific things. And that letter is assuring them, no, there will be a separation between church and state that will protect the church from the government.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it's actually, with where LifeWise is concerned, we actually like to say that LifeWise is a beautiful example of the separation of church and state because it happens off school property. And so the students are literally separated from the state school. They go off the property to learn about the Bible, and it's privately funded, and they need to have permission from their parents to be able to do it. Those are the three main criteria. So yeah, it's a beautiful example of the separation of church and state.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about the logistics of this movement. So I would assume that is a challenge, right? Because you do that during school hours. Is that correct?
Hmm.
So tell
Yes.
us a little bit about how it works.
Yeah. So at the very foundational level, essentially what happens is during not during core classes, but a lot of times during a recess or a lunch or a study hall, students will leave the public school. Like some volunteers will either drive a bus or walk to the school if it's close enough. They'll pick up the students from the school. They'll make sure that they're all, accounted for, and in collaboration with the school to make sure, all the students are there. They'll take them on a bus or they'll walk to an off-site location. Oftentimes that is a church less than a mile away, or a community center, or sometimes people have built their own building that's right over the property line of the school even. Or renovated a house, or whatever they do. There's a lot of ways the community can implement it, but they'll go to an offsite location. They'll have anywhere between a 30 to 50-minute Bible class, and they'll pray together. They'll read the Bible. They'll do all kinds of different lessons and activities to um, learn the Bible, and they'll pull a character trait out of each Bible lesson. that they'll focus on, like love or perseverance or endurance or generosity or respect. There's all kinds of character traits that are tied to the biblical lessons. And then when the time is up, they'll hop back on the bus or walk back and be dropped back off at the school. And that's how it works.
That's incredible. Now tell me, what is the school age? Are you talking, is it just elementary kids or is it throughout any school?
It's all of primary school. So all the way up throughout all of elementary, all the way up to high school.
Mm.
And even there are even high schoolers who can get college credit for some of the classes as well. Yeah.
Now, what kind of challenges do you all face with parents and even schools? Tell me a little bit of what are the biggest challenges, because I know that the enemy is like working hard to stop this. There's no question about it.
Sure, sure. Yeah, the biggest challenges we face at the very basic level, the biggest challenges are just a lack of clarity, a lack of people not understanding what this actually is. And we try to explain it as clearly as we can, but it's still just there's not a category for this. This is a new idea in many ways. So, I mean, it's based on an old Supreme Court ruling from 1952, but no one's ever really done it this way before. So it's hard for people to understand what it is. So most of the time, the challenges we run into are people thinking that just them thinking that it happens in the school, that it happens on taxpayer dollar, that it happens, that it's mandatory for any of the students in the school. And it's none of those things. It's off school property. It's not using any taxpayer dollars. It's privately funded. And the students have to be signed up by their parents. They need parent permission to do it. So once you navigate through those specific points of clarity, most of the time people are like, oh, okay, never mind, that sounds fine. So that all being said, there are some holdouts where people feel like, we've had some school boards say no to this in certain areas, and they usually cite that it's a distraction to the school day or taking away from class time. Those are the typical things that we hear. I mean, there's a particular school board in Everett, Washington right now that is actually engaged in a lawsuit over this. From
Believe it.
yes, but they're specifically saying that they don't want the Bible to be brought back from the class into the school in a visible way. So they're saying you have to put the Bible in like a sealed envelope that you can't see into and stuff like that. And so that's where the lawsuit
Wow.
really sparked. But yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day too, it comes down to people's pushback comes down to the idea that public schools are neutral and that they're supposed to be
Hmm.
a neutral space. And the problem with that is that public schools are not neutral. Like they're already teaching a secular humanist
Absolutely.
worldview. You can't have there's no such thing as a neutral worldview. And
Hmm.
so, it's not a neutral space. And so
Never is. It never is.
yeah, it can't, yeah. And even to have all LifeWise is offering an option to the parents in the community who want it to have something that they could enroll their students in that in addition to what they're already learning in the school, so a lot of the arguments break down, but yeah, there's certainly opposition. I mean, at the end of the day, there's plenty of people who just oppose the Bible or oppose God and don't want anything to do with either. And I think
Yes.
there. So
That
yeah,
that's the tale as a tale as old as time, right? For sure,
right,
there will always you cannot do something like that and not expect opposition, for
for
sure.
sure.
And
Yep.
but you said something that I'm curious for our audience, because I know that your film, it's the film that is now streaming on Angel, by the way, for anybody who's interested in watching, definitely need to go check this out. But it's called Off School Property, and
Off
in the
school.
move Off School Property,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
You
that's
got
it.
it.
Yes, and I know that in the movie explores the historic shift, right, that has occurred since the Bible was taken away from church, and then the impact in our nation's values, in the families, and everything. Can you tell us a little bit about what you found out? And I know with the help of researchers like George Barna,
Yeah.
who gave a lot of insights into this movie as well. So can you tell us a little bit of what the public can expect?
Yeah. So in terms of the movie has like a three-part arc. And the first part is, it talks about how the Bible was initially a part of education in America. It was like the foundation. It was the reason people were so interested in literacy so they could read the Bible. And yeah, it worked its way up through and all the way to the 1960s progressively as public education became was no longer a private thing, and it was community owned, and like secular humanism was on the rise and stuff. And so yeah, it
Mhm.
all got stripped out, religion and any sign of religion or the Bible was taken out until in 1963 when there was a Supreme Court ruling that banned the Bible and prayer in public schools. And we talk about why that's such a big deal, to remove the Bible from public education. And the answer is because the Bible is a big deal. Um,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
that's what you were talking about with George Barna. He's in the movie, he talks a lot about the data behind it. That was something I was really interested in is, you can conjecture a lot about the impact of removing the Bible from public education, but I was curious, is there actual data to
Hmm.
support cultural trends in that direction? And he has been studying this for a very long time and has tons. I mean, that's his entire career is studying these sorts of trends. And yeah, he talked about how people who have a biblical worldview, their marriages last longer, they have a better relationship with their adult children. Like, there's just like a million different factors that cause human thriving when you have a biblical worldview. And so while it's hard to draw some like perfectly straight line between like the moment the Bible was removed from public education and our current cultural state, what is clear is that the Bible established the biblical worldview establishes a whole host of values of
Yes.
like respect and what does love actually look like, and there's like a million other things that
Mhm.
when you don't have that, when you substitute that for a worldview that says that you're an accident or you're random, and people essentially what we have in light of all of this cascade is a crisis of meaning where people they're not created by God, they're not
Mhm.
known by God, they're not loved by him, they don't they're just a like any other you know bit of matter that floats around in this world. And when that's your worldview, you get, I think, what we have now, and that is a crisis of meaning where people just don't, you know, anxiety, depression, suicide rates increase because people, where does your, why do you matter?
Mhm.
What's your meaning? What is any, so yeah, I think that correlation can be made. And then, yeah. So,
Yeah, and one of the things, the truth is that if we do not believe in something, believe in something, we will fall for anything. And I think that that is a very true statement for the state of what our public education is, or what the public education, the things that actually have influenced it in the last 50 years, the shift that has happened and how it has impacted society in general.
mhm.
Right, because truth is, when you remove the Bible and you remove the biblical foundation, a biblical worldview from society, it's not like you remove it and nothing replaces it. That's a very
Right.
erroneous, right, concept. But there's always
Correct.
something. The devil's going to give you options, and we know
Mm.
that he certainly has, right, in the last several decades. And we see today, right? We see this crisis of identity, gender identity issues. We have the issue with the sanctity of life. There's so many things that have impacted our society in an incredible
Hmm.
way. And again, we everybody's going to follow a certain book, whether
Yes.
they want to admit it or not. It's just where who wrote the book, right? And I think
Yes. That's well said.
I think we see that very, very well in society. And well,
Hmm.
one thing I want to ask you, one of the things that is addressed in the documentary is that since its inception in 2019, so it's a very,
Hmm.
very, very short life, right? It's
Yeah.
just about going on 7 years now. But ever since then, you have seen, or research has shown that life wise has impacted the mental health of participating children in general. So I'm sure that this is a
Hmm.
research that was done. Tell us a little bit about that. What have you found out, and do you have actual data to support that claim?
We have um we've got data that's around it. To be honest, I don't know if we have like a clear direct correlative study, but what we do have is polling data that has basically laid out that suspensions have gone down, and there are just behavioral, all the proxy indicators of an
Mm-hmm.
increase mental health are there. So, yeah, better behavioral metrics and stuff like that we have seen with schools. Yeah, I mean we've had stories too where there was a story I can think of where a principal was initially not very interested in adopting LifeWise into their district, and at a certain point came back to us and said, "We need it. Like our students just need it," and they're seeing the impact in the communities around. Uh, I mean, the data we have from polling is overwhelmingly positive from both parents and educators of
Mm-hmm.
the impact of the program. And there's a lot of intangible ways too. I think of situations where, a student very tragically died in a particular school, and the school reached out to the local LifeWise staff to help like nurture and care for these students who all of a sudden have very big questions about life and death that the school can't really speak to, um, and there's been a number of situations like that where you know we all have big questions, and little
Absolutely.
little kids are no different. They still have those big questions, and that's kind of the premise of the whole documentary is like we view educators as absolute heroes. They're fighting with like both arms
Yeah.
tied behind their back. They've got way more students than they can like they're just overwhelmed with it. The amount of students they have, the
Mhm.
size of the questions that they have, and the one big question that everyone's asking is like why? Like why do I matter? Why does anything exist? Like that's underlying everything else. And that's the one question that public schools aren't allowed to talk about.
Yes. Mhm.
So the communities that are adopting LifeWise, they're just seeing tremendous impact in the lives of students because they're able to actually bring their questions somewhere and have answers, particularly in cases where they don't have parents that come from a biblical worldview necessarily, and they've got those questions. And I mean, a lot of parents, it's
Yeah.
hard for all of us to talk to our kids about hard things at times, and to have reinforcement from the community so that you're not the only one is really valuable.
Absolutely, absolutely, I agree. Well, I have a curiosity question. Is when you think about America and you think about the Bible, you think about the South as the Bible Belt.
Hmm.
Well, I'm curious. Like, has this been uh, accepted or received better in any region of the country specifically, or is it really the acceptance nationwide? Do you see that thirst all across the nation?
Um, we definitely are seeing it all across the nation. There are pockets that are. more embracing than others for whatever reason. And what's interesting to us is it's not necessarily the Bible Belt that is like the most excited. Like we definitely see it there. Like, um, yeah, they're very thriving programs throughout that region. But I mean, we've got a thriving program that's, in Seattle, Washington. You know, we've got
Wow.
programs in Colorado,
Oregon. Do you
program.
have anything in Oregon?
Yeah, we have live programs in Oregon and Portland,
That's amazing.
LA. There's some places we wondered what's it going to be like in that region of the country.
Right.
But we've got strong interest in places that are, yeah, kind of surprised us. I mean,
That's amazing.
we were hopeful. We just had no idea what it would be like in different areas. But yeah, we've seen very strong interest nationwide.
That's wonderful. Well, let me ask you, what about like the some decisions like the Supreme Court decision on religious charter schools, right? A recent decision on that. How has that impacted, or how will that impact, you think, your organization?
I would. I don't actually know a whole lot about that, to be honest. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not. I'd be the wrong person to ask,
Okay.
unfortunately. I
Yeah,
wish
no,
I
no,
could help you.
that that's all right. I was just wondering if how, because the thing about it is that the government puts their hand on it, religious education, and will that open to all religions, right? That's a curiosity I
Hmm.
have, because when you
Interesting.
think right, when you think of religious education, we know that Christianity is not the only religion, or Judaism isn't even, they are not like, they are still the most common, right,
Hmm.
denominations in the US, but they're definitely not the only one. So I was just curious to see if that has impacted in one way or the other, but that's all good. um
Yeah. Well, one thing I will say, maybe this informs that, but we don't. LifeWise stays very high level, and we don't make like denominational distinctions. In fact, that's one of the big benefits we've seen of the program is that people from all sorts of different Christian differences, all still holding to a foundational biblical worldview, of course.
mhm.
They have been able to come together and all serve their community in unity. All kinds of churches from different denominations, uh, and that's been a really cool thing that we've really celebrated.
That's wonderful. I'm sure that people would be curious to find out, like, how do you choose your teachers? What kind of credentials do they have? What is your process for that?
Yeah, we've got a hiring process. We post jobs like any other job, but we have like a whole vetting process we go through. And every teacher goes through a teacher certification course, all kinds of training so that they're well qualified for the job.
Mm.
And we have shoot, what was I going to say? Lost my thought. But yeah, basically we train up our teachers, and yeah, we've got all kinds of
So there's,
teacher
I'm sure
development
there's
and
training and mhm.
yeah, background checks and all that stuff. Yeah, they go through all kinds of stuff.
Well, what about this movie? Tell us a little bit more about the movie itself, because you're the producer, right,
Hmm.
of the movie. So what were some of, like, how did you guys start with this idea of coming up with this movie? I'm sure that one of the great things is awareness of even that the program exists, but tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you hit it on the head just now that is the biggest challenge we have is that people just simply don't know this is possible.
Mhm.
So I have a history in documentary filmmaking from years ago. I lived in Israel for a while and was working on documentaries there, and have worked on documentaries here in the States and other places as well. So when I got connected to LifeWise, that was immediately going through my head as I was watching this whole thing start. Seeing how incredible it was, seeing the potential for what it could be, and seeing all that through the eye of a filmmaker, I thought, we got to tell this story somehow. And also seeing the impact of documentary films on our culture,
Mhm.
just to be able to
Absolutely.
get the word out, they're just so powerful. such an effective medium. So yeah, the idea has been there for a long time. It wasn't until about 3 years ago that we started actually working on it. And yeah, I just essentially wrote out an outline of what I thought the structure, made sense for the movie. And Joel, the CEO and founder of LifeWise, he had written a book prior that kind of gave some of the framework for it. Um, but essentially, we decided this movie should follow my own story, having been a public school student, having asked, grown up in a house where a biblical worldview was taught, where the Bible was taught, and then trying to wrestle with that dissonance that a lot of students in America wrestle with. Like,
Mhm.
okay, my at home, the Bible is the most important book that's ever been written. At school, it's banned.
Yes.
It's like, so what gives? What's the deal? And then afterward, I went to Israel and got to answer a lot of the big questions I had. So I have that background. And so the movie follows my kind of exploration and my story. And yeah, it just ended up, God just really put this thing together. I mean, I've never been a part of a production that was so just eye-opening. The things I learned along the way
Mhm.
were hugely impactful. So yeah, I'm really eager for people to watch it. I mean, like again, it gives that historical overview, and then of the Bible and public education, and then why the Bible is so important, and then what we can actually do about it. That's one of the things that I think is special about this documentary is there are a lot of documentaries that are sort of just sounding the alarm, but they don't
Mhm.
really give you like a very clear, here's what you can do about that.
Absolutely.
Um, and this documentary gives you a very clear, here's what we can do about this. Like, here's what we can actually do that anyone can do. There's a million ways to get involved. And,
Yes.
everybody's got a place. And so it lays out how LifeWise Academy got started and how it fits right into this um, problem of the Bible and public education being separated. And the whole movie hangs on the essential idea that here we have the most transformational book in all of human history banned from the one place where we educate 90% of our population. That is kind of
Yes.
that's the big problem that we're asking the
Uh,
questions about.
that's quite a problem there. No, like that's never thought about it that way, but it's very true because the population of kids that are not educated in public school is very small,
Yeah,
right? It's like it's
there's 50 million public school students across the country. 90% of our population is educated through the public education system. And there are those who think we should just get rid of the public school system, but I mean, but practically speaking, I think there's other ways to involve the community, and I think this is a really practical way to do it.
absolutely. Well, let me ask you as we finish our conversation. Um, I have to apologize for my camera. I am going to finish this conversation and go buy a new camera online because
You're fighting for your
it's
life over
never
there.
it has actually this is the first time that it does so many times. It usually like did a one or two and then it
Oh
stopped. So
man.
I'm sorry about that,
Oh, it's okay. Not a
the
problem.
wanted wanted to mess us up on this subject because it's so important, and I know.
Mm,
Well, listen, Nate, such an incredible initiative, and I love that you guys are bringing awareness through this movie. Let me ask you, somebody's going to want to know, and of course, I'm going to add all information to my show notes about how people can connect with you and how people can support this initiative, and also, of course, watch the movie. But tell me, what is one of you said something? You said people can do something. You can do something to help the situation and help enlarge this message. Tell me some of the
mm,
ways that you're calling people to come alongside your organization and this movie.
sure. Well, there are a few key ways to get involved. The basic first one is just to go to lifewise.org and click the little button that says find your school. and you can search by district, by zip code. You can find your school, your local public school, elementary, middle, high, whatever, and you search by, yeah, I said district, I think. And then just see, do you have a LifeWise Academy already, or is there one getting started, or is basically there's a to get one started, you have to you collect 50 signatures in your community, and that just shows us at the LifeWise National Support Center that you're really interested, and then we can go to the next step. So get 50 signatures on this your for your local community, and that just starts by just adding your own signature. So just go find your school, sign your list, share it with others. There and then beyond that, there are ways to get involved in your planning team. If you don't have a LifeWise, you can start being involved in the team that helps plan how to implement one. We have a whole 10-step process to help communities walk through that. If there's already a program in your community, you can they just rally around them and support them. They're
Hmm.
always looking for volunteers, donations,
Teachers, I'm sure teachers.
teachers.
Hmm.
Yeah, yep, exactly. Yeah, so there's all kinds of ways to get involved.
Yes.
Um, yeah,
And I assume that it is a 501c, so people can also donate to the organization, right? And
100%. Yeah,
100%. Yes, wonderful.
and
And
as you, oh, go
uh,
ahead.
no, no.
I was just gonna say it as you said. I mean, watching the movie is the best way you can understand the whole thing. It's
Yes,
kind
that's
of
the way to
complex.
start.
Yeah, it's
Uh-huh.
kind of sometimes it takes a little time to understand it all, and that movie just it gives you enough time and enough context to really understand the whole thing. It's streaming on Angel, and if you don't have an Angel subscription, if you know somebody who does, there's a little button that it's like a free, it says share free access, and they can share it with you, and you don't need to be a paying subscriber to watch it. You just create
Yes.
a login and a password. You'll make an account, but you're not paying for a subscription, and you can watch it for free.
That's great. That's wonderful to know. So everybody, I will put all the links on the show notes. So just go there and let's support this wonderful, wonderful cause. I imagine that there will be a mother or a father that will listen to this interview and that they are going to be like, okay, so or maybe a grandmother and say, okay, I don't have a kid that is in public school, but I want to help. I want to get involved. Is the volunteer base or how to even start a charter of your organization? Is it only parents of public school students can start that, or is it for anyone with a willing heart?
Anyone with a willing heart. Yep. And again, we background check everybody. We'll vet everybody who wants to be involved. But yeah, it can anybody's. There's a lot of grandparents. We got bus drivers needed. There's all kinds of ways to fit in.
That's incredible. And of course, if in the very least, go watch this movie, spread the word because I am really into what's going on, especially in the Christian environment in America, and I had never heard about it. So we
Yeah.
have, I'm so grateful that your PR reached out to me because when I read about it, I was like, what is this happening in America? I had no idea. So, well, first of all, kudos to you and everyone involved. Joel, which is an incredible story as well. He's the he's one of the powerhouses in behind the
Yes.
LifeWise Academy. If you love the Ohio Buckeyes, you know who Joel in who Joel is, and Joel Penton. He is a strong Christian, and he was a defensive tackle and national champion for the Ohio State
Hmm.
Buckeyes. And is he in the documentary as well, Nate?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yep, he did
he
it.
is
He and I have been very close friends actually for the last 20 years, and so it's
awesome
been
because
fun
he's the
to do this
CEO,
together.
right?
He's the
He's the
CEO and the
actual CEO
founder. Yeah,
of LifeWise.
the short story basically, he had been touring and speaking to public schools throughout his career. He was a national youth speaker, and found out that there was a program like this happening in his hometown and
Mm.
saw it. And 90% of the school was enrolled and the community loved it. And he was like, whoa, 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 whoa. You're
Wow.
telling me that we could, are you serious? And the guy who was helping run it was like, why in the world is this like, is not every Christian in the country doing this? This is so impactful and so
Incredible.
incredible. And Joel is like, that's a great question. He'll say that that's the day he gave up sleeping because he just sat and thought about that question for a long time. And eventually, yeah, founded LifeWise. And in the early days, they set a goal, but of like, let's see if we can be serving 25 schools by the year 2025. And
Hmm.
now here we are in 2025, and we're serving over 1,000 schools.
Over 1,000 public schools in
Yeah,
America.
in
That's
35 states.
during school hours in 30, you just say in 35 states?
35 states. Yeah, Hawaii, Alaska, California, Washington, Florida. I mean, and everywhere in between.
That's amazing. This
Um,
is, listen, this is a baby organization. It's only 7 years old. I'm so excited with with what, the impact that this is going to have
yeah.
in the future generations, our grandchildren. You never know. The sky's the limit. So grateful that Joel found out about this one town that had this, and it sparkled the, I sparked the idea in his mind and his heart. And
Hmm.
we know this is a God given idea and definitely a God sized story. So happy to report on it.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, appreciate
Thank
you.
you, Nate, so much. And well, we will be sharing this information in our podcast. And if you are listening or watching this, first of all, sorry about my camera. It won't happen again, I promise you. But Well, Nate, you were it. You were like chosen by whatever to be on this horrible camera situation. I promise you, if you go to my YouTube, you will see this doesn't happen. But
I feel special. I feel honored somehow.
you're just special. Well, but th- thank you for bearing with me. I know it was distracting, and
Oh, it's fine.
thank you so much for the time. And we're going to do our very best to promote this incredible initiative. LifeWise Academy, everyone. Go to Angel, and you can even watch it for free, as he said, and go watch Off School Property. God bless you, Nate, and thank you so much for what you're doing for the kingdom.
Thank you.